Anytime I make a video about Donald Trump, the one thing I always like to reiterate is that he is not an ideologue. Basically, in the sense, an ideologue is someone who has a very structured and sort of closed off system about how they view the world. For example, a communist, they'll give you an answer for every single question that gets presented about, what should we do about this problem? What should we do about that problem? People who are ideologues have a set script and you can very accurately predict what they're going to do. On the flip side, you have some, what people like to call pragmatism is like, okay, we're going to take each situation, and depending how I feel about the context, I might come out with something, I might not come out with something. And I think Donald Trump fits that category more than people realize. I think the media has done a poor job at illustrating this, but that kind of sets the pace and sets the standard for like my video today about the one objectively good thing that Donald Trump has done. And you might have heard the news recently, but NBA YoungBoy, who's a very famous rapper, well liked among many people, he was indicted. He was sentenced for I think 5 years probation um, for some sort of firearm related charge, and Donald Trump has pardoned him. And you go into the nitty gritty about how did this pardon happen, and you talk about his border czar. And something in the first Trump administration that a lot of people don't give any light to, that they neglect, is the criminal justice reform that he did. Him, along with Congress, passed a bill or two about re tooling and rehashing all the sentences for a lot of inmates who were put in prison due to the crime bill that was kind of the brainchild of Joe Biden at the time. And though Joe Biden still this day regrets his actions. The crime bill in many ways has screwed over a lot of people. A lot of unfair sentencing for just petty drug crimes and things of that nature. But in 2024, as soon as he won the office, one of his announcements that kind of got swept over the rug because it's not very controversial. It's not very newsy. It's not sexy in the media as his pardon czar, Alice Marie Johnson. And I have here that she was once a convicted inmate herself. She was a grandmother and she was serving life for a nonviolent drug offense, but she was released because of Trump's intervention. And I also have other women, Crystal Munoz, Judith Negron, and Tiny Hall. All of these women are examples that were pardoned by Trump because of these drug-related offenses. So, why do I say this is the objectively good thing that Donald Trump has done? Well, obviously, it's well liked. A lot of people agree that petty theft, petty drug offenses, especially marijuana back in the day, should not be criminalized the same way it once was. We have a new Overton window. We have a new idea about what marijuana really is and how dangerous it is to the public. But I think this is just one of those shining examples, so to speak, of who Donald Trump really is. And I watched a great documentary slash like kind of video essay on YouTube not too long ago about how Donald Trump actually preserved this idea of what centrism is. Post Obama era, you saw a rise in these Aryan Nation, KKK type fringe white supremacist groups, and you also saw the rise of Antifa and all those types of things. But Donald Trump comes in, guns a-blazing, and he's kind of appealing to that populist kind of mindset of just, I'm for the common man, I'm for the average Joe who's not tucked in an internet forum, looking up a bunch of conspiracy theories, whether you're on the alt left or alt right, whatever the case is. So in many ways, Donald Trump has been that person. Now I'd like to note though that Donald Trump also is someone who is very good with his words. Even though he says a lot of crazy shit, I think it's all intentional. I think it's all meaningful to him, at least in the sense where those words are going to get to the right ears to increase his voter base, increase his, his pull, his notoriety, and such and so forth. His whole rhetoric about illegal immigration and all those types of things, and the border being a complete mess. Even though it's not a thin line of saying all these people from other countries, they're they're unwell and all these things, and they're not as superior to us. He didn't ever said that outright, but it serves as a dog whistle for a lot of like super fringe extremist people to go on the backs of Trump, while also sticking to that middle ground crowd and be like, yeah, I don't consider myself racist at all, but I think illegal immigration is a problem, right? So Trump has a really um, expressive way, and I think a lot of people are borrowing a lot of the things, especially a lot of people on the right side of the aisle. But regardless, I guess swooping back to more, um, what Trump has done in terms of criminal justice. I have here about the First Step Act in 2018, which reduced mandatory minimums, expanded rehabilitative programs, and made reforms retroactive, which I think is brilliant, and I think everybody agrees with me, unless you're some crazed psycho, I guess. Um, but I have here that over 3,000 federal inmates have been released. People like Van Jones, Kim Kardashian, and the Koch-funded libertarians, they all sent their praises to. He's really reaching out to all sorts of people. But I guess, yeah, it's not going to be too long a video because, there's not much to speak on it. But the idea of who Donald Trump really is, um, I've also said in the past of like, there's a difference between Donald Trump as the spokesman, as the showman, the words that come out of his mouth, and the person that he actually is and the actions that he actually takes, right? Most headlines you see of Donald Trump are going to be, Donald Trump said this about that, Donald Trump said this about this. But if you actually like read underneath the article or read in between the lines, say, okay, what is his administration actually doing? You're going to get a better of idea who Trump is. I'm not saying you're going to have a more favorable or unfavorable opinion of Trump, but I think you're going to have a more accurate and understanding of, what this administration is doing and what this administration is capable of. And I would like to wrap this up by saying, I don't endorse him. I'm not saying he's the best president. I'm not saying he's the worst president in the world. There are your Andrew Johnsons of the world. But regardless, I think it's important to not really hone in on what the media is saying. Look at the actions themselves and make your best judgment on those. I think that's how we're going to move forward as a society in terms of um, things of that nature. And you can also have this perspective. Yeah, there are a lot of policies I like about Donald Trump, and there are a lot of policies I viciously hate about Donald Trump. This is not a me versus them. This is not, we're all Americans at the end of the day, as cliche as that sounds. I can look at this particular instance, his policies on criminal justice, and I can say, yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with that. But there are other things I don't agree with, and I've talked about them in the past. But, understanding these things, understanding the nuances is kind of the point of my video. And yeah, thank you for watching. Let me know what you think. If you like the video. If you dislike the video, and I'm out.